right, thank you so much for staying tuned. Nigeria's national grid again crumbled twice in 4 days as of January 27, plunging millions into darkness and exposing the deep rot that defines the electricity sector. Power generation had collapsed from 3,825 megawatts to a miserable 39 megawatts within minutes, with a electricity distribution company confirming the disruption. Predictably, the Nigerian Independent System Operators sought to play down, of course, on this, describing it as a system-wide disturbance that caused a total outage across the entire connected network. This is the third grid collapse in less than a month after similar incidents on December 29, 2025, January 23rd. Grid failures have become a defining feature of Nigeria's electricity sector. NERC data shows that between 2010 and 2022, the country suffered at least 222 partial and total collapses, while reports document 12 more across 2024 and 2025. Well, my guest is Dr. Chukwueloka Umeh. He is the founder and CEO of Fedikore Limited. He joins me from the United States of America for this conversation. Dr. Umeh, it's good to have you on the program. It's been a while. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, Tolu. It's nice to see you.
Yeah, it's really nice to see you, but not with this. We're at this again, back to grid collapse again. Just in 2026, we've had two system collapses around the power supply. The first one, I think we even went back to 0 megawatts and work started all over again. Now, what really, again, is this problem? I know for sure that the grid doesn't have the capacity to satisfy us, as in our demands as Nigerians, but the little coming from it, why do we keep having this flip-flop?
This is the ongoing question of, do you just put the band-aid on a broken system, or do you take it apart and rebuild it from scratch? You know, you can't blame one particular government or the other for what's happening and what's been happening. If we compare Nigeria's situation with a country like Vietnam, for example, Vietnam took a very hard stance on electricity. They looked at the electricity problem as a state of emergency and a security issue really for the government. And they systematically designed a system to split the grid into zones, the grid into zones, and fix them zone by zone. And again, they also went the extra step of making that system independent from the government so that politics had nothing to do with the electricity system. Now, compare that to what's been happening in Nigeria. From 2011, we went on this journey to privatize the system, which was the very good thing to do. And we've been going through that privatization. However, at every step of the way, politics has had a hand to play in this system. NERC is not devoid of politics. The Ministry of Power is not devoid of politics. TCN is also not devoid of politics. And you find that each subsequent government that comes in, they make very sweeping pronouncements on what they're going to do, how many megawatts of electricity they're going to add to the grid, what they're going to do with the entire system, but it never happens. This particular government is also not exonerated from the same thing. They said that within 4 years, we'll have uninterrupted power. And you can see what's happening. We're barely 1 month into 2026, and we've already had 2 grid collapses. It's going to continue happening until we start to see the power sector as a critical backbone of any economy and treat it that way. We must remove government's hand completely from the power sector, all the way from generation to distribution and everything in between. This is the only solution.
I remember far back then when we had the privatization exercise. I remember far back as that time we were covering, I've been covering this sector, and we thought that immediately after that, everything was just going to get normal and we'll start to have steady power supply. The discos came up with the issue of tariffs issues, that they needed tariffs that would meet up with what they were producing and generating and all of that. The Gencos too came with the issue of money is being owed and all of that. Every segment of the value chain seems to have a challenge. Now, federal government is not sitting idle. Some work seems to be going on. But some would argue with you that we seem not to be getting more value for money. What do you also make of that? After privatization, years after, we're still grappling with just 5,000 megawatts. It's worrisome.
I think in some ways we're moving backwards. So the government can continue throwing money at this system, but it's not going to change. I mean, if you think about the budgets, if you read the budget lines, how much did we spend on electricity subsidies in 2025, 2024, 2025, and how much earmarked to be spent in 2026? Only subsidies, not capital projects. You find that the amount of money that we spend on little parts of the sector that does not really trickle down to the average people, myself, yourself, it's enough to build robust infrastructure if we're serious. Now, to show you how little confidence we as a people have in the power sector, Nigeria's power sector, the government is building a solar grid, a solar mini grid for Aso Rock, the seat of the government. So if the seat of the government is removed from the national grid, how then would they know what's happening? The people that make the decisions that we have to live by today are not even really connected to the national grid. And if they are, some of them don't even pay their bills. You saw what happened in Lagos last year, where allegedly some people from the military went to Ikeja Disco's facility and beat up some people because they were disconnected. But this is part of the problem. If you set up a business, whether it's a disco or a Genco or a gas supply company, you expect to get paid. You sign a contract with whoever it is you're supplying whatever it is to. And that contract says you will receive this service at this time and you will pay this much money. If you cannot honor that contract, the business falls apart even before you started. This is what is happening in Nigeria today at every level. We need to understand the power sector is not a charity sector. Today, we have aircrafts running in Nigeria. We have aviation working in Nigeria. Why? Because private companies are running different airlines, from Air Peace to United Airlines to Max Air. This is all run by private sector. Now, yes, you argue that you have a couple of governments that have gotten involved, Ibom Air, Enugu Air, but they are still largely driven behind the scenes by some private sector players. Think about telecoms. Telecoms works in Nigeria today because it is completely driven by the private sector. What happened to Nitel? We sold Nitel. Is it working? The answer is no. The same thing must apply here. So the government can continue spending as much money as they want. It's not going to work. The solution is simple. If, for example, you divide Nigeria into 6 zones, northeast, northwest, middle belt, southeast, south-south, southwest, and have these be independent grids on their own. If there's a problem in the northeastern part of the grid, it shouldn't affect the northwest because it should be isolated, right? If there's a problem in the southwest, it shouldn't affect the southeast. Right now, if someone sneezes in the northeast, the grid goes down in the south-south and vice versa. And all the equipment that we're using is outdated. There's almost zero automation in the system. The grids that we're running, the grid we're running today is still on 330 kV. We should be looking at 500 kilovolt lines now, the super grid that spans the entire country. For this kind of installation to happen, imagine that the government brings out $4 billion, for example. That will build us approximately 40,000 kilometers of 500 kilovolt lines across the country. This is a strong grid so that we can have power go and through the entire country. But we also have to isolate or insulate the system from politics, from corruption, and then put in place rule of law and consequence management. If you don't do X, Y will happen to you. But today, think about what we're running. The discos started off with a template from NERC saying, if you don't do this, you have to pay this consequence. No, nobody pays anything. So how do you expect it to work?
payments for Gencos now, again, like you said, back to money again. You know, we've seen that government is trying to address I think it's about 4 trillion naira debt. And this is indeed worrisome. You agree with me, Dr. Umeh, that this is worrisome. And we've seen a settlement method mode being created by government, and they've already captured about 5 Gencos. But my question to you really would be, what this means for generation. Does it mean that we could probably increase capacity moving forward if some of this debt are settled?
If the debt is settled, the money is going to go back to paying whatever is outstanding now. I'll use my company, for example. When the government pays me, or when my client pays Fedikore for the power that we generate, that money goes to pay for our loan. It goes to pay for gas that we use. It goes to pay for maintaining our plants. It goes to pay salaries because people have to eat at the end of the day. So that money, it doesn't immediately translate to me expanding my footprint. Okay. So when these Gencos are paid, they have legacy debts that they have to go and settle. And that doesn't really translate into growth. If we do not have a system where those Gencos are paid as at when due, they are constantly trying to play catch up. And even if the Gencos have unlimited amounts of money in their pockets and they generate all the electricity they want to generate, how do they move the electricity to the discos? TCN is broken. We are still working with a national grid that can only move reliably about 5,000 megawatts of electricity. That's nothing. That's literally nothing. That's not even up to the amount of electricity used in New York City alone. So we continuously look at little parts of the industry without realizing that the entire thing is the problem. And it's not the technical issues that we should be worried about right now. It is, well, it's the philosophical. I mean, you have to look at the entire system. Rule of law. How are we adhering to the grid code? Who is enforcing the grid code? What are the KPIs for the players in the system to work according to? What are the consequences that they have to be held to? If somebody fails, how is that person sanctioned? Who are they reporting to? When you turn on the TV, what are we talking about all the time on the TV? Listen to the news. It's always politics, politics, politics. Who is treating this system as an emergency, as a national security issue? We're talking about bringing foreign direct investment into the country. Where is it going to go? If you're going to build a factory in Nigeria today, the first thing you're thinking about is, where's your electricity coming from? How are you going to build your own electricity supply? So you can give all the money you want to the Gencos. The discos, what about them? What about the person supplying fuel to the Gencos? Who is going to regulate it? If there's a problem in the contract, which courts do you go to that can settle you?
That brings my mind back to when the discos argued so very much about cost-reflective tariffs, and we found ourselves now for the band A, band B, band C, and D, and E. But I must tell you that in some cases, even some of us in band A, we don't even get the 20-hour supply anymore. And it's worrisome when you look at what you're supposed to tell NERC and what NERC is supposed to do, and you just don't hear anything. But let's talk about metering before we wrap this up. You know, there's never enough time to talk about electricity generation in our country and issues around it. We are back to the free meter scheme again, as introduced by the federal government. And the minister and other heads of agencies have come up to say, you must not pay a dime for this and all of that. But what do you also make of schemes like this one and bridging this gap, of this metering gap that exists in Nigeria?
I mean, it's nice to give meters to people without them paying, but they're still going to pay for it anyway. That cost is wrapped into your tariff, whether you like it or not. You're paying for it, but you're paying over time. So it's neither here nor there. Right, one way or the other, you're going to pay for it. But you know, cost-reflective tariff is the right thing to do. However, again, we go back to the chicken and egg question. If I pay you what you charge me, are you going to give me the service? we pay band A, but a lot of us, sometimes you don't even get up to 10 hours of electricity, depending on where you live. And if that electricity comes, it goes on and off, on and off. How can a company, a manufacturing company, do work with that kind of electricity? It's not possible. If you, for example, think of a company that's making plastic products, anytime you put a batch of plastic raw materials in the machines and the machines strip off, you have lost that entire batch. So they can't even operate. What do? They have to go off grid. That has already raised their prices. That impacts the number of people they can employ. That impacts the amount of money that is available years later. And there is no end in sight to this conversation. Any government that gets it right will have their names written in stone. It doesn't matter what party. We're not talking about party anymore. We're not talking about tribe. We're not talking about religion. We're talking about who is going to fix this problem. Any government that comes up and says, you know what, we are going to focus solely on the electricity sector. This is all we're going to do for 4 years. Put politics aside, put personal interest aside, put corruption aside. Allow pure technocrats, Nigerians, to drive, because we know where the shoes are pinching us. Everything is going to change. We almost had it right in 2011 with Prof. Barton Naji when he was the Minister of Power, because he has been a player in this sector for many years. He understands the pain points, and they had a solution that will be for Nigeria. You can copy the US, you can copy Malaysia, you can copy India, you can copy Vietnam. But if you copy and you don't paste correctly, everything falls apart. So imagine the guy that he's sitting in an exam hall. Yes, let's go there. You're cheating. You're copying your neighbor. And in copying your neighbor's script, you even copy his name or her name. I
think it's
not going to work.
Yeah, I get that. Well, indeed, that's our time. Honestly, interesting conversation, I must say. And I thank you so much. I know the time difference for you to join us at this time over there in the US. Thank you so much, Dr. Chukwueloka Umeh. And I hope to have you back soon so that we can have you in the studio and enjoy this conversation. You've not visited our studio on the Atlantic. Dr. Chukwueloka Umeh is the founder, CEO, Fedikore Limited. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, then.